Hello, hello, good evening. Welcome back to our next series here. It is the third week here in October. It's Wednesday, and we're continuing with men health. And our actual tagline is, and God said, let us make man. Men, of course, they're first. We're going to admit it, right?
I don't have a problem with that. I don't.
Right? Without them,
Yeah.
it would be no us. So Angie and I, we're here today to continue under the Create With Me platform as we talk about men. We talked about on the first week, if you remember, we talked about cancer. Last week, we talked about heart disease, and we're going to go a little deeper now, and we're going to talk about something that is actually Awareness Month, Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we're going to talk about men who actually deal with that, goes through that. It's not just for us women. So we're going to give them that equal opportunity. So my girl Angie, she's here. We got a special guest. And Angie, you and I, you know what? How did we figure out that we both wanted to wear yellow today?
You know what? I have no idea. And a little pink in there too. I don't know if you can see my breast cancer in my
Yeah.
tan.
I'm
See that? And so it's got some little pink crystals in there. And I see that you've got pink in your necklace. Come
Yes,
on.
and I know, and you look so beautiful, and I thank you for just, coming to join with me on Create With Me. I think, this has gone to another level since you have joined me on this platform. So I'm so excited, and I just can't wait to see what God is going to do next. So as always, I'm going to shoot it over to you, let you introduce our guest for tonight, and kind of prepare the audience and what we're going to talk about and how we're going to talk about this. If you know of anybody, I would say grab them that's possibly dealing with this subject matter, and share if you can. Let's get this all over as far as it can go. So thank you, Angie. Take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, my dear sister. I am so excited, about what we're talking about, because to be honest with you, men don't talk about this. And we're not slighting women at all. It's just that, we have a lot of advocacy going on. And so the men don't have an opportunity to find out what, advocacy organizations are out there with them. But we found one, and we found a great one. I'm so excited about it. But let me give you some statistics so that you know what's happening from, a men's perspective. So 1 in 4 men experience some form of physical violence by an intimate partner, as well as 1 in 25 men are injured by an intimate partner. We're talking about slapping, for example, slapping or shoving or punching or biting. And it says more than 830,000 men from WebMD, it says they fall victim to domestic violence every 37.8 seconds. Some man in America is being battered, being abused. And that just, Renee, that just threw me. I was like, you got to be kidding. And so we sought out someone, an expert who can have this conversation with us. And we sought out Adam, and Adam, ADAM, stands for American Divorce Association for Men. Again, that's American Divorce Association for Men. And from this particular organization, we have attorney Brent Bowyer, who's with us.
Right.
And he's
Yeah,
going to
nice
talk
to see you.
about this. Hello, Brent. How you doing?
All right. I'm great. How you both doing?
We are doing
Thank you
good.
for joining us.
Yeah, you bet.
Appreciate
I got a
it.
little yellow on my tie, actually. That's so funny.
Well, come on with the yellow. You're in there. And
Yeah,
so,
it's a good
attorney Brent,
strong color. I like it.
Nice.
let me say, because you're experienced in this, so you have a BBA from Western Michigan University.
Go,
Yep.
Bronco.
Broncos. Yeah.
Yes.
Broncos.
Is that where that yellow comes from? Is there yellow and Broncos or something?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, for sure.
I'm representing.
Yeah.
And so he also has a law degree from the John Marshall Law School in Chicago, and he has dedicated his life to working on these issues for men and being an advocate and definitely being a supporter, as well as defending them in these particular cases. And if you go to Adam, ADAM, you'll find out child support, spousal support, domestic violence, father's rights, just a plethora of services that they offer. And so I want you to know who we're talking to and his expertise in this particular area. So Brent, this is a specialized area that we've researched and that we see dealing with men's issues. So how did you even get involved with this?
Yeah, so I always was interested in family law, even back in law school. I mean, I'm from a divorced family. My parents divorced when I was about 7, and I think that was always kind of on my radar, and it kind of spoke to me. Helping people, helping men, of course, because I'm a man. I mean, that was sort of an easy do. But originally, I was doing both, just divorce for all sorts of clients. And then I came across this law firm, and it really kind of spoke to me. And, all these years later, my partner John and I are the senior partners here. We're the owners. And it's just really an issue that's been important to us over the years. We've really learned to see that, and like you're saying with these statistics, it's surprising, sometimes even still to me, that men can be victims of these things. And I think we all have, I don't know about bias, but we all have a sense of how we think things are. And a guy comes in and he's getting divorced and there's talk about domestic violence, even I would assume, okay, he's probably the aggressor. What did he do and how are we going to fix it? But it's not always the case. And it's surprising that those statistics you said are real, that there's a lot of domestic violence. There's a lot of fighting between parents, whether they're married or unmarried, they have children together, and the relationships and how that can go bad very quickly. And there's usually a lot more there. There's a history. Somebody's grown up in a bad environment. They've grown up in a broken home, or they've been around violence. Kind of got normalized for them, and it's hard to see. It's sad, and it's shocking the way you'll just see that gender bias come out. The police are called. Most of them are men. They tend to assume the man's the aggressor, and it's real trouble. And so we look at that every day. We deal with that every day. And sometimes we don't know who did what, just like the police don't know who did what. So we struggle with our own bias of, okay, I shouldn't assume the man is always the problem here. And it's tough. You look at, that's where the genders kind of share a lot of common things. They can both be victims of that. They can both have problems with it. And it's hard to get your head around sometimes, it can be.
Okay. So how long have you partnered with this firm, Adam? That's a pretty, that's a pretty, you can recognize that name. So
yeah.
How long have you been in this?
I've been with them since 1999. Yeah, so over 20 years, almost my whole career. I started here when I was just a little baby lawyer, and it's been great. We see a lot. We get to just become experts the right way, just doing it every day, learning from the right people with divorce and family law and all the other categories we deal with, custody, paternity, parenting time, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
It's amazing as far as, the statistics too, Angie, that you mentioned. Like, I don't know anyone personally that is a male that has been impacted in this way as far as domestic violence. Is it too, we can say that a lot of people just don't talk about it as well?
Yeah.
And there is a certain profile for a person that you see fit into this category. Because, one time, I don't know if it was Angie and I were talking, and we were saying how there's this person that's in the situation, and you would think that the woman is this 6-foot person and maybe the guy is 5'8" or whatever, but there's it could be a tall man, a short man, it doesn't matter. But what kind of drives that?
Yeah it's surprising. And I can give you an example. So we had the typical, like, big guy. He was a client, former military, 6'4", shoulder length hair, and he's going through a divorce, and it's real ugly. They're fighting about everything all the time. They got teenage kids, and this was a while back. Really, phones weren't as common as they are now, but even still, he had video of his wife trying to run him off the road at some point, which was really crazy. And he ended up with a domestic violence charge, that I think, if I remember right, ultimately he beat the charge. But in the meantime, more importantly, he wasn't really seeing his kids, and his kids they were kind of against him, and then they sort of started coming around. And the whole time the wife's the victim, we were assuming, we're thinking he's this big guy, and she was probably 5'2" or something. And they went through this long drama with their divorce case and fighting about it all. And the point that his wife had destroyed some of his property, we thought, although she denied it, had destroyed some military memorabilia that was kind of irreplaceable, and some clothes and just a lot of stuff. And way into this, probably 9 months into this long thing, we're at a mediation and we're talking about dividing up some personal property. And in the meantime, the two of them had been working on it and got back together, and we didn't know. And they told us, and then his wife, and I forgot to tell you, so she had actually passed a polygraph about all this too. His wife had taken a polygraph about the violence and all this stuff, denied it. She then kind of broke down in front of all of us and was crying and told us they're getting back together, and admitted to having done everything she was accused of. And it was crazy because I don't know if we really believed him a lot of the time, because there just wasn't anything there to go on, and it didn't seem believable. And it was one of the situations every day. The police show up and there's this big guy and he's kind of scary looking, and there's this smaller woman, and they're thinking, oh, he's probably the problem, and we fell for it too. And it was a real eye opener that you got to listen to people, take them at face value, try not to judge them on what they look or how they say things or what they're doing. It was shocking. We couldn't believe somebody like that could be a victim, but he really had been victimized, and he's somebody that you'd feel safe going anywhere with him next to you. He's a big guy, and it was crazy that all of that, just your brain sort of looks at all that and you can't really think of it any other way. It's hard to see it any other way. It was shocking.
I'm just shocked by what you just said, but it's not unbelievable because, I've seen that before. I mean, I have, 5 brothers, and I have a brother who's like 6'2", got some guns on him. And a lot of times people will look at the physical stature of the person and then present their judgment of the particular person. And, and I've seen it where, this was long time ago though, with ex-girlfriends or whatever would, say and do, punch or hit or whatever. And of course, you're raised not to hit women, my brothers are. So you don't do anything. However, I don't believe that a woman should even be putting her hands on a man, because you don't want the man to put his hands on you. So you keep your hands to yourself as well. And if they push or even just hold the woman, trying to get the woman off of them, then the police are called, and then it said, you're the aggressor, you did the assault, and they're trying to tell the police officer, whomever, she hit me first, she punched me first, but they sound like little wusses, complaining, oh, she hit me, or she punched me first, and and who wants to be noted as somebody who's weak,
right?
So you don't say anything.
I find a lot of times we're not being told the whole story. Men, and both genders, but men sort of shut down in crisis. They sometimes you just give up the fight. You don't want to fight over it. You don't want to deal with it. And it's hard to, you got to drag it out of them sometimes. Like, okay, what's really going on here? We need to do what's best for your whole family. And we can't have one person walking all over everybody in the situation, whether it's the mom or the dad in a divorce, if there's kids. Most of the time divorces are children. So we're always dealing with those issues. And yeah, absolutely. It's kind of shocking even to us.
Now, you, Attorney Brent, you mentioned that the example you gave where the couple got back together. Okay.
Yeah.
So when that happens, and I know maybe your work is done because you're the divorce attorney,
right.
Do you make any recommendations for counseling? Because I can just only imagine that if this happened once, it's probably going to happen again. So how do you maybe orchestrate that to where they go get help, where they go and sit down with someone and, kind of try and really salvage that marriage.
Yeah, it's a big concern, and I remember being worried about it then. And I agree, definitely. Even from the first meeting, I always ask about have you tried counseling? Have you has anybody tried therapy? Because for one thing, my challenge with meeting with men all day, all the time, is I got to get them talking. They don't open up the way women do, and it's hard to get them going. So I'll ask them about that. Well, have you tried marriage counseling? Have you tried therapy on your own? And like you said, that example that I gave, I was very worried. How do you know this isn't going to happen again? How is this time going to be better after all these things? But yeah, therapy is great. Counseling is great. I encourage men to, even if you can't get your spouse to go to a counselor with you, go to a therapist on your own and talk it over with somebody. It helps you see things a little more clearly. And the therapist will pick up on it quickly if you're in a cycle of abuse or a cycle of real something that could really become a problem, whether you're the one doing the fighting or the defending, you're in the middle of it. And absolutely, therapy and counseling is the best thing for any of this. And it's tough. Like, part of our advice that we get faced with divorce and divorce lawyers is, we really, when they have children, we want people to stay living together. But obviously not if there's like domestic violence. So then what do? Because living apart at the beginning can create so many problems in a divorce. It turns into trouble with custody and parenting time. I move out, I have no plan. When am I going to see my kids? Now I'm maybe facing child support. I'm worried about what's going on at my house. So it's a delicate kind of thing. But we know as lawyers, our best advice, as long as we're pretty sure there's no domestic violence going on, it's best for your marriage to stay living together, and it's best for your divorce to stay living together. So we just tell people stay living together. And sometimes we're kind of privately rooting that they'll just save their marriage, because some people need to do that, and people here they'll reconcile, sometimes way into a divorce, but a lot of them it's kind of too late by the time they come to us, and it's kind of sad. It's our role is it's like we're in a relay race, and we're going to help them with this, and we can do this far, and then they're out of your life. And that's a hard thing with any of this, with what you two do, or with lawyers or therapists. You're kind of helping that person, and you're real, every little detail, and then all of a sudden they're not around anymore, and you just got to hope you told them the right thing. You got to hope you're helping them somehow.
Yeah,
every
and
day.
that's very key, and this is a disclaimer to what I said earlier. And by no means I am recommending that someone stays in a relationship where they're being abused.
Right.
Definitely
Right.
not. I do know there is the power of change, where someone can change, and things can be better. Let's talk about, if you will, I had a personal situation, where, and I don't know if you get into this as well, where someone comes to you, they're looking to be divorced from an abuser, and they go and take the steps such as a restraining order. Can you walk our viewers, through that, how that works, and if it works?
Right. Yeah. So, the advice, we're usually looking at, there's kind of two paths here with personal protection orders, restraining orders. There's guys that have children with this person, and then there's people that don't, or the children are grown. Because it really, if you're in a situation where you're getting divorced or whatever's going on, and there's a personal protection order between you and somebody that's close to you in your life, in a relationship, our advice is, if there's no little kids and that's not going to get in the way of any of that, we usually say, look, fighting over this personal protection order really might not be a good idea. I don't know what you did or you didn't do, but this person doesn't want you around, and maybe you just need to take that to heart and look at what's going on here and let that go and give them some space. Now, if the personal protection order, the restraining order, has gotten in the way of, now I can't see my kids, okay, then that's different. You have to sort of balance. We want that person's, we certainly want them safe, and we don't want somebody causing problems for them, but we've also got a dad that really can't see his kids now, and what's going on might have very little to do with the kids. So that we're always we got to dive deeper is really the answer. We got to know what's really going on. Is this someone that's just upset with you, or, do they really have every right to say, I don't want this person around anymore? And then you got to work with that in dealing with children. But when there's no minor children, We just say, look, you're going your separate ways. Just take that for what it is and start taking steps towards that,
And I don't want to keep asking all the questions. I'm gonna let you get in, my sister Angie,
Sure.
but because I've had this happen to a family member, how well do they work? I mean, this has been, my sister was murdered 1994. And so, and we don't, as her family, we don't feel like that protection did anything. She had a restraining order, but it didn't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. It's devastating. They have their flaws for sure. The court system can be frustrating in the sense that as lawyers, we feel like all I can ever do is get somebody a piece of paper that says what it says. It's a court order. So with domestic violence and with personal protection orders, I hate to hear it, stories like that. It's no good. It's hard to have enough things in place. It's hard to be ahead of what you think somebody might be capable of or what they're willing, what they might do. They can fool everybody sometimes, right?
Reality, right?
Yeah.
Happen. And so that's why we wanted to bring this information to the viewers, because it is happening, and it's happening on both sides.
Yeah. That part's surprising, I think.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, to be honest with you. It's really heartbreaking that it's happening on both sides, like you just said, Emma, and that both sides are experiencing this. Michigan, though, I want to talk a little bit about, Michigan divorce laws. And it's said that Michigan has the most strict divorce laws with regards to in favor of women, and not so much men, and in particular, African American or Black men. So can you kind of speak to those divorce laws of Michigan and its regard, to men? Because a lot would say, I know personal situations where it was the woman who left, but then when you go to court, the judge is looking at the man, how long, people were, have been married, who was the breadwinner, and then render a divorce, whereas he can't even buy a Snicker bar,
right?
From that heavy judgment that came down, child support, spousal support, and all of those sorts of things.
Right. Yeah, for sure. It's the laws are written, of course, not to be gender biased. They're not, I don't know if they're intended that way. But it becomes the behavior, the stereotypes, the typical things people do that play into that hand. Like you said, maybe the woman left in a divorce situation, but if she left and took the kids, now this person is on the outside looking in. The man is, the husband's already in trouble. He's fighting about custody, fighting about parenting time, trying to deal with child support numbers. And there's just a lot of things working against men. You'll see, most of our clients are like middle income kind of families. And you'll see a household, even if both spouses are working, there's a good chance that the husband makes more money than the wife. They've got kids. She's been putting the kids first, and she's been having to kind of pass up on some opportunities probably. And that plays into this problem of getting divorced. Now I'm doing child support. I'm the one making the most money. I have the most at stake. I have the most to lose. And it just shows you how the gender bias is still there, how laws are applied as opposed to how they're written, which is a problem with a lot of different topics. But yeah, it's a combination of the situation they're in, the typical behavior, typically what men do and what their buddies tell them to do, and the bad advice they get. And they end up down this road of they don't know how did I get here? How did I lose everything? Or seems like I lose everything. And that's where we come in with trying to give them the right advice ahead of time, not to try to be outmaneuvering their wife, but be trying to get more of a fair shake at this. That 30 years ago, we were still in a world where men were not spending a lot of time with their kids. They're working 40 hours a week or more. And you get divorced, and mom would probably have custody, and they'd have some parenting time, and everybody would go with that. It's much more a shared custody environment now, which I think is good. I hope it's for the best. There's more time. The kids need both parents, and it's easy to fall into a trap where you end up without the right parenting time. You don't have a lot of time with your kids, which then leads to a higher child support number, could lead to alimony, depending on how long they've been married. But a lot of guys we find will come in here saying, I want more time with them. I want shared custody. How does that look? How do I do that? What does that look like? And that's a good thing. I think it's caused men to become more involved. They tend to sort of shut down and just walk away. And I think we're seeing that's changing more and more.
Okay, go ahead, Emma. Go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of bring it to mainstream. You're talking about the laws of divorce. What can you tell us for this year? Because we've heard since COVID, there's been a rise in domestic violence. There have been, problems in marriages. What have you seen in your practice relating to the COVID-19 situation that's upon us?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we saw come like May and June where the things started opening up again and people got back to work and back to things a little more, that there was a big spike in divorce. Our phones we were ringing off the hook, people contacting us. And then it's more of everything. It's more divorce, then it's more domestic violence, more PPOs. It became more of everything. There was kind of this pent up need for it, or the couple months together was making things worse for people, whatever it was. And it's gone up and has kind of stayed at that level. We're finally now starting to see things go back to what we look at as normal. But yeah, for sure, there was definitely an increase in all of those categories, divorce and all the ugly things that can be related to it. Yeah.
Well, when you say gone up, I'm kind of a numbers person. So from last year to this year, can you kind of put like some, numbers to that or percentages to that? So give us an idea when you say it's gone, that it went up.
Yeah. So the state's always a couple years behind with their statistics, because you can look at state of Michigan statistics on divorce and marriage. They're out there, but they don't have them out yet for last year. But I know from our law firm and from the other Adam offices here, we had March and April, we had almost nothing going on. And then by June, we were back to the same number of clients we had the year before, year to date for June. So through June, through 6 months, we had same amount of divorces we had the prior year through June, but we had like 2 months off. So it was we'll see how it ends, but I mean, it's probably 40% more, 30% more. Those 2 months where there was hardly anything going on, and that was probably true for a lot of businesses. And then all of a sudden by June, we caught last year. That was hard to believe that it was that much more, that May and June were so much higher than a normal May and June. So the exact numbers, I don't know, but it was a good, probably 30% increase in divorce and those related types of cases. Yeah.
And you were saying those related to the domestic violence?
Well, yeah, personal protection orders, domestic violence, custody and parenting time type of cases. That whole world just seemed to really ramp up come May. After March and April was just pretty quiet around here for everything. Yeah.
Okay. So Emma, you have more questions. I got a couple more questions, but I want you to ask your questions too.
Well, that was the main thing that we wanted to do, just to give the audience a backdrop. We typically just deal with women, and one of the things I wanted to do was kind of bring in my family, and we talk about that incident that happened, with my sister. And so this is so near and dear, to be able to have you on here, even though we done flipped the script, we're talking about men. It's so important. So thank you for, sharing your knowledge on that.
Oh, now, for sure.
Emma, I take it from the other angle, right? Because I have brothers. Mm-hmm. I have 5 brothers. And I've seen a lot, with regards to, relationships and situations. Mm-hmm. I've seen the prejudgments, from, the police or the court systems, when I'm knowing, some situations that have gone on, or what has happened. And so, Attorney Brent, I read a little bit about, your personal story. So do you mind sharing
Yeah.
your personal story with our audience, so that they know that, hey, that you really understand this situation?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. So, my parents got divorced when I was about 7. And, that's a big thing at that age. You sort of think that the adults in your life do everything right and know what they're doing and have it all under control. And then when they go their separate ways, it's kind of shocking. And, my dad was an alcoholic, and then my mom got remarried, and then my stepdad was an alcoholic. And that's just a lot of yelling, fighting. When people say they fight every day, like, that's no joke. I mean, they would fight every day, yelling at each other, having all these problems. And it's very hard to stay kind of grounded as the kid in that environment. I was, at that point, I was the only child. My sister was a lot older, and it's a struggle. And so I get a better sense of what these guys are going through when they're feeling like everybody around them is kind of abandoning them. You sort of feel like everybody's leaving, that you've counted on, all these people you've trusted and put your faith in. And, you get older, you learn not to have so much faith in people, right? I mean, people disappoint you, but as a kid, you don't really know, although I do remember learning kind of quickly that, okay, the adults don't know what's going on anymore. And that served me well as I was growing up, that you always kind of give things a little thought before you do it after an adult tells you something, because you're not sure what they think. And, so it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. You grow up around yelling and fighting, and you kind of hear that in the back of your mind, and so it helps me relate to what these guys are dealing with, whether they're the aggressor or the victim, that you got to get out of that toxic environment. It's just got to end. It's got to end no matter what. I'm giving you an example. We had a client that was he rescues exotic pets, illegal pets, basically, there's a lot of them in Michigan. Chimpanzees, alligators, tigers, all kinds of crazy stuff. And a lot of these guys are drug dealers. They have a lot of money. They want something exciting and unique. And so, so they'll get a baby alligator, right? And they think it's a great little pet. Well, what they don't know is an alligator grows a foot a year. So 3 years later, you got a 3-foot alligator. What are you supposed to do with that? All this thing ever wants to do is try to eat you. It's got that reptile brain. It doesn't get that you feed it and take care of it. 4-foot alligator. And then my friend will get called to come rescue that from this apartment. This thing's living in a bathtub, and they can't believe it hasn't killed somebody yet. And I tell our clients a lot, I'll give them that analogy, and I'll just say, that's the relationship you're in, that you're trying to control. This is an alligator that it's just going to grow every year.
Bigger.
If nobody does anything to help and to make it different, it's not going to be different. It's going to get worse. And that's, I think part of what I saw growing up, that these people need to go their separate ways. They're never going to work this out. Nobody's doing anything to make changes, and these toxic relationships are damaging everybody involved,
And that's just it, getting to those toxic, people and getting them help. And that is the solution. And then, sometimes it's just, that's a whole nother story. How do these toxic people come together, because they're broken people. And that's a whole nother, story. But I admire you for, seeing that this is something you grew up with, and now you want to come in and make a difference. And I think everybody has that purpose inside of them. God, I'm bringing God into this. He takes us through different things, and we think it's just for us or whatever, but it's really for somebody else. So you went through that, and now you've built, this, acronym, ADAM, help those same types of people. And then even people that are victim, beyond just the two couple, you got children, that are involved. And so that's a really good thing. And that's a great example of someone going through something, and now they live passionately to, help someone else.
Yeah, and a lot of it is you have to know, that's why I encourage them to talk to a therapist. I'm not trained in that, but you hear the the signs, and people will say things, and I'm sure you've seen it too with victims and with aggressors. They want to try to normalize it because it makes us feel better to relate to each other and say, oh, you know how it is. We yell at each other a lot, but it's no big. And then you say, and I'll think, well, that's not how it is. We don't yell at each other a lot, but so you got to use your judgment whether you say that in the moment, like say, well, I wouldn't really go saying that, or they'll say, well, I hit her, but it's no big deal. They want to kind of normalize that stuff because it's their normal, and it's always tempting to you want to relate to the other person you're talking to, like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. We scream at each other every day. You're thinking, well, that is a big deal. You gotta end that. And I think people, both of them, the victims and the aggressors, can get to where they just they can't understand that it's wrong anymore. They're so used to this world where there's all these things that you and I would immediately recognize as wrong, huge warning signs, and they just don't know anything else. They have no one else to trust. This is like their whole life, and it's tough. You gotta, sometimes all you can do is listen to them and just hear them out.
Talk about the signs. The signs, the things that happen. That it progresses from one, spot to another.
Yeah. It's I think the big sign, the warning signs at my involvement, because usually I'm meeting with someone and they're coming in for advice about a divorce, so they're probably pretty well down this road already. Maybe somebody's already filed, somebody's mentioned the word, they've talked about it. So I'm seeing it at that level. It's a ways down the road probably. But I think the warning signs are just the normalizing bad behavior that, she sleeps all day, but it's okay. It's whatever happens. And they're talking about something that sounds so crazy and telling it in a way that makes it seem kind of like a regular day to them, whether it's abusing each other, neglecting the kids. And that's when you start getting a sense of like, wow, there's a lot more going on, because this person feels like this is kind of as good as it gets for them, and this is going to be their life. And it's bad. It's a lot of fighting, a lot of yelling, probably a lot of violence. They tend to downplay some of that. The victims and the aggressors, I think, they don't want to give you all of that at first because they want to see how you're reacting. They don't want to be judged about it. But that's the sign. Just any normalizing things that are just crazy is a very scary thing to be listening to. You can't believe it at first that they think that this is just how it is. But it's, they grow up in an environment where there's a lot of yelling and fighting, and they don't see it as that unusual, and it just repeats itself, and it can be scary stuff.
And the person is very controlling. I mean, that's what it was with my sister. The person, they treated her like a possession.
Yeah.
It was just a horrible thing. My sister and I will, tell everybody she was beautiful. Like I said, she was the most beautiful woman, person that I can say I know, right? And so they wanted to, buy her. They wanted to control her. And when it came down to she wanted to leave, he felt, you're not going to be with someone else. And that's when it happened. Even leading up to it was a lot of mental abuse. So that's also domestic violence, mental abuse as well, and sometimes can be more damaging, than that physical.
You're right, Emma. You are so right. That emotional, mental and emotional and psychological abuse, just because somebody doesn't put their hands on you doesn't mean that you're not experiencing some form of abuse, because you're right. It's hard. It's harder because it's in
right.
here.
Right. So she was hurt before he actually, one day apart, he stabbed her on a Sunday and then he shot her on Monday. And it's horrible. That was the most horrible call to receive. It was.
Yeah. It's devastating.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With what we tried to do today with our audience, and if you are viewing this and you are male and or female, and you are in a domestic violence situation, there is help. I know that we are in this, COVID or pandemic crisis lockdown. However, there's the national hotline that is available. That they still have people who are answering the telephones. I mean, there's people who are still out there. And I want you to tell our audience, and we're talking about men, how they can get in touch with you. Is there a national hotline for men? I mean, what can they do? How can they, reach out and find you and get the help? And then also tell me about your firm. How many people work with you with this particular situation? What are their, I guess, law degrees or credentials, so that people know, especially men, that they can call Adam and that they can get some help.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, your best bet really wherever you are in the state of, we deal with just Michigan so far, so state of Michigan. But yeah, you can reach us anytime. We're at 248-356-ADAM, which is 356-2326. And whether you're Grand Rapids or up north or wherever, you can call the Southfield office. That's always been kind of the center of this whole organization. It's the main office, and we can get you in the right direction. And even if you don't know what to do or what to say, any domestic violence related, divorce, family law, custody, whatever it might be, we can get you in the right direction. We've seen it all. We know where you should be going for what resources and what you might want to be dealing with, because divorce is a whole umbrella of a lot of problems that men and women deal with, but with men. And but yeah, this firm, so we got 7 attorneys here that do just divorce and family law. We're experts. I mean, I teach at seminars on I teach attorneys how to do divorce work, and we've got attorneys here that have been doing this longer than me. I've been doing this 23 years. And then if you count the other Adam locations, we're easily the largest divorce firm in Michigan, with 5 attorneys at this office and 7 at this office. And we've seen it all, and there's men and women that work here. It's not like it's like men's club or something,
Right,
it's
right. That is just
yeah.
that one initiative, but you do work with a cross section, like it's not just for men. Am I hearing that correctly?
Well, the clientele is just men. I mean, basically, yeah. But the employees, there's female attorneys here. That's true throughout the law firms all over Michigan. Women are great at divorce and family law. They're really made for it. So we got men and women that work as attorneys here and do a great job. And they're just trying to sort this out and get these people put back together. It's, like I said, it's like that relay race idea. Like, we got these people for this part of their life, and we're trying to make the best of it. And we know they're going to go on to other things, and we won't be around. And we like that. We try to just we do the best we can with this part of it, and we move things along. And that's what this whole thing's about. We're just trying to help them get through a really, really tough time. People are they don't know what to do in a divorce. It's very upsetting. Feels like everything they've ever known is changing, and you just have to take it, one step at a time, like anything else, and get good advice, get the right advice.
I know you said divorce, but if someone's in a relationship, they're not married, but
Right.
they're in a relationship, whether they live apart or whether they live together, and they're experiencing domestic violence and they come to Adam, they can receive some help, right?
Oh yeah. It's not just married. There's a lot of, probably half our clients are never married, but they have children together or they're in a relationship. Yeah, absolutely. So it's divorce, but it's all, even when you're not married, you're in what feels like a divorce. If you're splitting up, it's kind of the same ideas. But yeah, we're here to help. We got a lot of resources out there. We know the experts. We know who's good and bad and whatever. We can steer them in the right direction for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I'm through grilling them. We're through interrogating you.
Yeah.
It's been great. And like I said, the men that are out there, I don't know any personally, but that could be because they don't come forward, because that's what I heard, that they are, a little ashamed to come forward. So I think it's a relevant topic. I mean, I've heard a lot of people talking about domestic violence this month to make people more aware. So please, please, if you're involved in any type of domestic situation, violence, whether it's physical, mental, psychological, emotional, please get help. Don't live through it by yourself. Do not. Get help.
Absolutely.
So that's all I have.
Yeah.
Any finished words, final words that you two want to say, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, all I want to say is the help is out there, like you just said. You know, and I know we're talking women, you know, we've got agencies and advocacies, and please look, you know, reach out to those places. And with the men, I want you to know that help is there for you too. Attorney, you know, Brent Bowyer, Adams, you know, the American Divorce Association for men is not only for if you're in a you know, marriage situation, if you are experiencing some type of domestic violence, there are agencies, men out here to help you. So please reach out and get that help. I'm going to echo Miss Emma. Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. The help is out here. Attorney Brent?
Yeah, for sure. It's well said, both of you. You know, we find that these relationships that really get toxic, usually there's children involved. So that's where we come in. You know, most of the relationships we're dealing with, people are here to get our advice because they have kids. And that seems like where most of this is. A lot of this domestic violence is around relationships, married, not married, that they have kids together. And it's a tough thing. You know, there's help out there. Don't go it alone. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't give up hope. Don't feel like there's nothing you can do. There's always something you can do.
Amen.
Sure.
That hope is everything. So
Yeah.
thank you all, Attorney Brent,
Thanks.
for coming today. My
Thanks.
girl Angie, thank you for sharing your resources on this platform, Create with Me. We're excited. We will be back, our final episode for the month of October, as we continue. And God said, let us make man. We will be talking about depression. So that is a pretty huge thing, especially given the climate that we're in. And so we're going to have special guests. So you guys tune in. All right. Everybody have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you soon.
See you.
Thank you.